thank you for being here, and everybody who's watching. I really appreciate that. And I want to say that I just wanted to talk a little bit about the organisation that I work for, World Jewish Relief, just to understand the context. So World Jewish Relief was established in 1933 to do two things. One was to lobby the UK government to allow people fleeing from Nazi persecution to be able to come to the UK. And the second thing was to raise the money in order for people to come here. And then that's the core and the origins of the organisation I work for. So fast forward nearly 90 years, and we are still supporting refugees fleeing from a range of issues that make them leave, or people are forced to leave their countries and their homes. And we are here to support people in the UK, in particular into employment. So I just wanted to give a little bit of context of where the organisation I come from and why we're involved in the work that we are.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for the important work that you're doing. Can you tell us a bit about the current status of women refugee and the employment in the UK? What does that look like right now?
Okay, so as many people will know on this call, refugee women are one of the least, unfortunately, least integrated and possibly the most isolated groups in the UK. And they face specific barriers to integration, including issues around childcare, social isolation, low levels of economic activity, which can also include, unfortunately, poor language skills. And that was recorded by the UNHCR in a report in 2020. As there are with all women, there are all different types of women refugees, different issues, but we at World Jewish Relief are running a programme called Step Forward, and that is focusing on support for women refugees. And we came to this point because we run an employment programme and we found that 80% of participants were men. We then decided to address that by encouraging our employment advisors to encourage women to participate on the programme. And then we had 40% of our participants were women. But then we found that the actual impact, they had access, but they didn't have the same outcomes as men in terms of finding employment. So we decided to do a deep dive and to understand why that was happening. And we came up with working with women refugees, came up with a new programme called Step Forward, which we're currently running in Coventry and in Bradford. And we learnt, and we also did some external research. And what we've learned is there are some really key issues for refugee women. One is around acquisition of local language, so English, access to English classes. Many women do not have access to them, or they find it very difficult to continue with them because of childcaring or caring responsibilities. And sometimes it can also be around coercive control or other family dynamics that may be going on. As I said, this is not for all women, but these are for some of the women we work with. We've also found that women lack social networks. The current programme that we run, 100% of the women that are on our programme said they could rely on no one outside of their family. So they have very little connection outside of the community. What we've also found is that some women, when they first arrive in the UK, may not access some of the integration support that local authorities or local charities provide. And it's really just about settling and working with their families. And then they're not accessing English language, etc. So, and making those connections outside of the home. So that's something that we found was a problem. Now, other things that have come up is around transport and feeling safe, that many women don't feel that they can access the transport system and they don't know where to go, where it's safe to be. We've also found that women are unsure of their qualifications. Qualification verification is extremely important. And all of these things, when women don't feel that they have the right qualifications, or even if they do have qualifications, they're not accepted, all create an alienation and an isolation. And so and I'll go on to that shortly about where we see how we can address some of these challenges. Other things, as I mentioned, was childcare. So knowing what childcare is available. We also found with some of the women many of the women that we work with, they did not feel comfortable leaving their children with childcare with perhaps people they didn't know that well and weren't family members. So we've done quite a bit of work about having childcare in the room where we run sessions and slowly moving that childcare outside of the room. But understanding access to childcare and using childcare has been a process for some of the women on our Step Forward programme, but that has been critical to their learning. Also on our STEP programme, we found that actually 40% of the women on our programme had not had an education beyond primary school. What our programme does is allows women to have literacy and numeracy classes, allows them to do additional English language classes, as well as things such as mental health support, financial literacy, a whole range of support is available, of which women, and also a part of the programme is women design part of that programme. But what's happened is for many of the women, we've now got increasing numbers of women accessing other training provision. All the women have increased their literacy levels. So there's a great interest, but it's about having access to suitable and available training and support. And we now know that a number of our participants are ready to go onto our main programme, which is around finding employment, which we're really excited about. So I'd say some of the key barriers are around English language, transport and safety, childcare, and lack of social networks.
Yeah, I mean that, when we're thinking about like if some folks are familiar with like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like that is everything on the foundation for these folks that are they're lacking it. Right. Yep. So you're there to support that. So there's so much of the foundation that's missing. Can you talk about, can you share about the legal and like bureaucratic barriers, like the next thing up? So we're talking about, access to some of those things that you were mentioned are some of the bureaucratic problems, but are there others that are like within the system that once they're trying to find employment, is there more red tape?
So it's not necessarily there's red tape. Possibly if we look at some of the government, the Department for Work and Pensions provides people with both job information and support, and will also provide your benefits as well, so your payments that you receive. And depending on who is in front of you and how it works, women often are not part of those conversations. So often their partners will be, they won't have a joint bank account, only the woman will have a phone. There could be a range of things that happen where actually it would be really helpful for, and it does happen in some cases, but a more conscious effort around making sure that women have equal access to those benefits. We have cases where women will sign up with our programme and they'll be given a mobile number, and the person that answers it will be their husband rather than their own phone. So there are many issues where I think government can intervene sort of into some of these structural issues. In terms of employment and accessing employment support, I think there is a real case to be made for women-led and women-centred recruitment support. And I know others have raised this. So there's a really good report by Tent actually around women refugee recruitment. And one thing they talk about, and we have definitely seen it, women do have to, will be working with men, but actually allowing women that space to explore some things that they would like to be, where their skills and experience will be valued in a women-only session would be really helpful, and women-led recruitment as well. And I think that's something that I would really encourage. And we've seen the value of that. We've seen, women who are gaining their confidence in those groups. So that's one thing that I think would really help. And also networks for women. So often, and we know there are lots of, this I suppose essentially is some form of network as well, and that women networking and making that effort and being able to be mentors as well, or coaches who are already in business or professions, we've seen to be really positive as well about encouraging and supporting women on their journey into work. There is a place for coaching, but I think this is more of a mentoring approach, and that there are possibilities, because we all know you don't know what you don't know. So allowing somebody to help support you and make that leap into work would be, I would really encourage. There are small pockets of that happening, the other organization that I chair, the trustees, the Refugee Employment Network, we do run a mentoring scheme, but we don't have one specifically for women at the moment. And that's something that I would really like to see, because I think it makes an enormous difference. Because you're in a country you know very little about, maybe some of the cultural norms. We've even seen it in terms of the Ukrainian refugees who have come to the UK. There are some real differences around how you prepare your CV, how you apply for jobs, that if you apply for 3 jobs and you don't get it, that is quite normal. That's how our employment system does work. And it's just ensuring that you've got someone with you to guide you on that journey, I think would be invaluable. And I also think English language, even English language classes where employers would be able to offer some of that additional support, would be absolutely fantastic, even if it's just in the language of the business that they are working, because many women will have excellent language skills, but maybe lack some of the confidence to go into particular different types of employment. And even offering some sort of booster English language class is also something, also women only, would be a real support to women who are looking for work, and also makes them feel welcome, that this is somewhere that wants to recruit them. So I think that would be really, really important. So I suppose my 2 key things are around networks, and mentoring can support that, but also so can English language classes.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing from that too is what you spoke about earlier, is these are all forms of safety, right? To help these folks feel safe so that they can pursue work. And I'm curious if you could share about maybe how, you were talking about networks. So like the classes are networks. Are there other types of networks and things that employers and companies can like actually do to help facilitate and create networks? We can say, and like you spotted here, like Power to Fly is a vast network, but this is also a vast network of folks that have access to internet, that are looking at calls and stuff like that. Excuse me. We're a privileged network, and I'm privileged to be a part of it. What are ways that maybe the folks that don't have access to that, like you said, they don't know what we don't know. What are things we can do to help create networks?
Okay, so the first thing I just want to pick up on is around the internet and access to digital literacy. Yeah. That can be varied, and digital, and also access to hardware is also very varied. Right. We have found there's very little support on digital literacy for people who do not speak English. It's super hard to find, and that's something we're on the lookout for. And if anybody knows of anything that would be suitable, but I also know is that lots of employers have lots of training. They have lots of development work that they're doing. And if that was opened up to a cohort who's perhaps their English isn't quite at the level to enter the job market, I know some employers do that, but I think it would allow a whole group of women who have skills, who have experience, to be able to enter that labour market. So I think there's a bit of pre-work that could be done with employers. I think accessing your training and development for women would be fantastic. And actually, we can do online, and that's fantastic. But again, that does reduce some of the impact, and doing some of that in person in some of our larger cities where there were a network, perhaps there was a menu of opportunities in different businesses that refugee women would be able to access. And that's something you could replicate throughout, in a range of different large cities, that I think would be extremely popular. I think I should say tomorrow we're at the Refugee Employment Network, we're doing a jobs fair. And one of the key things employers have said to us is they want to meet refugees, and refugees want to meet employers. So bringing the two together face to face, not online, would probably be my preference. But actually building up all the skills and experience that employers have, and have probably a range of training that we would be able to access really easily, would be something that I think would be very powerful for women refugees across the UK. Yeah, absolutely. So can you speak about, the specific discriminations that show up in different types of work that are specifically that women refugees have? What are the barriers that make them, maybe people put them in boxes for jobs that they think they are or are not qualified for, whether that is true or not? So I think there is, we're all, there is stereotyping about what a woman refugee looks like, thinks like, whether, and there are a huge range, women on their own, single parents, women, couples, mothers, daughters, etc. And there is sometimes, there is discrimination around, depending which country you come from as well, an assumption about your level of education. There are also cultural assumptions that if you come from what some might think is a traditional country, then there is sometimes reluctance from, I would say, within the sector to challenge any of that, or to be surprised that there's a woman who's got a degree and would like to pursue a career who maybe comes from one of those more assumed traditional backgrounds. So I think it's being really open and thinking that actually not only are there women who have those skills and experience, but actually women, when they come here, can be sometimes slightly concerned. So sometimes people become more conservative in their views, and sometimes women are, and what we've experienced, are very excited about some of the opportunities that are available to them. But we must always be supportive of women through their journeys, and also talking to the men as well about how women, in terms of the UK, it's very unusual for a working family, not to have two parents working. That is the norm. So that's also an important conversation to have with families, that it is very normal and expected that women will be working. So I think there are assumptions can be on both sides, and there can also be fear on both sides. But one thing the Department for Work and Pensions have said is they found over half of women refugees cited childcaring and family responsibilities as their top reason for not looking for work. And I wonder to what extent they are then supported to find caring options for them, or it's just accepted that that is the case. So I think there's something, and there will be for some women, that is what they want to do, and that's absolutely fine. But I think if we're trying to support women to integrate, to find opportunities, to have choices about what they want to do, then I think we do need to maybe be more questioning ourselves on what we're expecting from women as they arrive in the UK, and allow them the space to decide on their future and how they want to be part of rebuilding their lives.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And it's probably, like you said earlier, they've been without agency because of the dynamics that the culture has put on, as well as on the macro level. But then in that micro circumstance that you're talking about, so they have no one to rely on outside of their family network. And yet in some of these family homes, they can't answer their own phone. So I would hope as well that they would be able to have more say in what they're doing and some of the things that we can help them with.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't like to think that that's all refugee women. It's not. That is some of the women. Right. And also in terms of the, most of the Ukrainian nationals in the UK are women, and they have, there's a whole range of other concerns for them as well. So each person will have different challenges. Right.
So we've talked a bit about the Refugee Employment Network that you're a part of. We also mentioned you work with the World Jewish Relief. Can you speak about that as well, so we can make sure we touch on it?
Sure. So the Refugee Employment Network.
Yeah, we talked a bit about that, and also the World Jewish Relief. So whatever one you'd like to expand on more here, because I want to make sure, we only have 30 minutes, so it's like pack in as much as we can.
Okay, I'm just going to check. I understand. So World Jewish Relief. So which is it? World Jewish Relief or Refugee? Do you want me to talk about both?
Oh, I'm just kind of like letting you decide.
Okay, fine. Yeah. I'll talk a bit about the Refugee Employment Network.
Okay, great.
We're a membership organisation. We have over 340 members, NGOs, local authorities, and employers. We have a website with a jobs board, which has just been relaunched, actually, our jobs board, because we've had these probably won't seem big numbers for Power to Fly, but for us it is huge. So we've had 17,000 jobs posted in the last year. We have about 500 employers who are specifically looking to support and employ refugees. And we have a number actually of our organisations, our women refugee organisations, which I'm really pleased to see is actually growing as well as our membership. And we do a number of things. So we have our jobs board. We try and provide support and guidance to many caseworkers. We have a mentoring program, which I mentioned before, and also that I mentioned before, we do jobs fairs. So we're actually bringing face-to-face refugees and employers. And that came about because there's lots of different refugee sector organisations working in different parts of the country. And this was about bringing everyone together so we can share more best practice and learning. And actually, something I really am keen that we do bring into the Refugee Employment Network is the voice of women refugees and the kind of work that they're looking for and want to support. Because as I say, with World Jewish Relief and their Step Forward programme, it's a very specific group that we're working with, mainly with women who didn't engage originally with integration services. And then with the network, we're really broad. We're in Northern Ireland, we're in Wales, we're in Scotland, we're across the UK. And the idea is to support refugees and employers so we can bring people together and get more job opportunities, good, decent work for refugees.
Wow, thank you for sharing about that. So we have just a couple minutes here as we wrap up. Is there other, thank you for sharing the website that you just mentioned. Are there other resources that you would like to share, maybe ways that folks can stay connected to you if you're on LinkedIn or other social medias or websites, or especially to the resources for folks that maybe employers that are looking to connect in more ways and help in more ways?
Okay, so I am on LinkedIn. I'm not a very good LinkedIn person, so that's probably the only person on this call who probably isn't very good. But
I'm working on it too. I'm there with you.
So what I would suggest that if you contact REN, we have all our the Refugee Employment Network. We have all our details online. I don't know if we can share the website, but we have contact details there, and we are keen to hear from employers. I should say we're also doing a range of other initiatives, small pilots. We're doing a piece on engineering at the moment, engineering mentors, and we're looking to do some work with medics as well. So there's lots of things happening in that space, and I'd be very keen to hear from employers, and also maybe some employers who would like to trailblaze and start to look at women refugee support as a specific piece of work. Because obviously everything we do is open to men and women. There's nothing specific, but I think it's worth employers maybe looking at that, which will be absolutely brilliant.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for today, Janice. This has been an absolute honor to speak with you. I really hope you come back to Power to Fly here. I know this was your first one with us, and I hope it's not the last. Please do come back. And thank you for making the time today.
Thank you for having me, and for everybody that's been listening. And I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Cheers now.
Thank you. Bye.